Hello, this is Dr. Jean, dear future people. Today we are going to talk about perspectives and life force, but we are also going to touch upon foolishness and even political activism. So let's start. Well, when we are talking about perspectives, let's first be clear that perspectives change things very substantially if this reality is not homogeneous, so that extension is not linear and automatic. Why? Because if we have an empty universe with a low effect field, then no matter where we look, or no matter how close we look, we are going to see largely the same, here, okay? Because things can be extended in space and time without affecting the end result. Now then, if we have a wide perspective in a reality that is not homogeneous, that is not empty, that is not a low effect variability type of a reality, then narrowness is going to create more of an illusion of distinctness. And the more wide we are, the more you are going to see variability, but also the effects of one thing on the other, okay? And this is true in space and in time. So in both regions and in time, we have specific regions and specific intervals, but more so if we focus on our attention on very small things, and it adds to this effect if we are not very refined in our observation. We have low resolution observation and we detect only very sharp contrasts, okay? So we are not very refined, we don't see transitions, okay? So then what we are going to see is very distinct and relatively independent units. So the wider we are and the more refined we are going to see that this relatively unchanged, homogeneous, and permanent things, okay, they just don't hold up. They don't make sense, okay? So permanency is homogeneity in time, okay? So that you can extend something, be it a truth, be it an object, be it a process, okay, linearly in time, either to the past or to the future. You can do that only if you do extension, and the narrower your perspective is, the more extension you are going to get, and the less sharp your resolution is, the more you are going to see independent things such as events, okay, such as distinct processes that do not connect with other things, okay? We have to be very clear about this so that we understand that rules and laws are nothing but extensions. They are extensions of small observations, of small units of truth, units of thought, okay, that are extended in space, such as universal laws, natural law, etc., okay, and in time, such as permanent laws, permanent truths, etc. And in these situations, all things being equal, or everything being equal, means that we do not consider but a few variables, okay, a few aspects, and we choose to think that everything else is random. Remember, randomness means ignorance, okay? Ignorance of things. Then things will seem to you random, okay? And everything being equal means that you you fail to consider a lot of things. Why? Because your perspective is narrow and your resolution is poor. So now, here's what happens. In space, you are going to extend things, okay? Extend domain, and in time you're going to extend domain considering only a few variables, okay? Only a few variables. And your extension is called projection here, okay? So extension in time very often is materialized as projection. All right, so remember that projections are always made considering only a few factors. So you always reduce complexity in space and in time. So now, why is this important? Well, here is a little picture that demonstrates the importance of all of this. So in the universe, you have various observers. Everybody has, all people have their own viewpoints, and they are looking at something, and this something is an attention unit of a possible observer, okay? But we have actual observers here, and this person is going to see this part of this person is going to see this part of this, etc. Okay? So then, this person is going to see things as a wall or a tree or a rope, and if we add together the perspectives of all of these people, then we are going to have an elephant. Now, let's not make a mistake here. This is an elephant not from an objective fixed point of view. This is an elephant by somebody who is able to see the perspectives of all of these people. So in other words, it is a group perspective. Okay? And it is fixed by consensus as a group perspective. And certainly the group perspective is, better or more useful than the individual perspectives, but the group perspective is not a general perspective, it is specific to a certain group. Nevertheless, what we are going to say here is that the group perspective contains the perspective of all of these individuals, okay? So it is a larger, more organic perspective. It's not an organic perspective, but more organic perspective than the perspective of these individuals. And here we come to an extremely important issue. Okay? And much of human folly and human foolishness can be understood by failing to consider the following. So we said that what people see as separate objects is really a difference in densities, okay? And the way you see these densities depends on your resolution. What contrast you are able to detect, okay? So, let's look. Let's say that here is a distribution of these imaginary points. Again, these are imaginary points of observation, okay? Be it by an experiment, measurement, whatever, okay? So, these are points of observations, and you see that the points of observations are more dense in this area and in this area. Now, depending on how refined you are, how much resolution you have, you are gonna see these transitions, okay? Now, if you are a little bit fixated, okay, so you are stiff, you are less flexible, then you are gonna say that really, this is something separate from this, and you ignore the transition as an error, as an outlier, okay? because you are fixed. You really want to separate things out, because why not? Okay? And so, if this is outliers, then you can regard things, because you want to, as two separate distributions. Now look at here. You understand what I'm talking about? So in other words, all these borders here, okay, are contrasts of densities, failing to understand transitions. And would you imagine the foolishness of it all? That by ignoring these transitions and by insisting on distinctness, now I'm not talking about diversity here, because diversity has nothing to do with distinctness, nothing at all, okay? So I'm not talking about diversity. Yes, there is diversity, but there is no distinctness. You see? Distinctness is always artificial, here and here, by being less refined, having less resolution, and being more stiff, okay? You want to ignore transitions, and you want to have distinct entities, even if it doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense to you if you lack resolution and understanding. Now, we were talking about one type of political extremism. You understand what I'm talking about. This. And now we are going to talk about another type of political extremism. And that is due to an absolute failure to understand what organicity means. So, we said that all objects, all separate processes, all systems, and all events are also densities with sharp contrasts and making it easy to understand and to distinguish. Okay? So now, this is based on ignoring transitions. Okay? And ignoring transitions here also means ignoring a large number of variables that would otherwise prove the organic interconnectedness of things. Okay? So we don't only ignore these transitions, but we also ignore the multiple levels that these distributions work and live together. Okay? So this is not interbeing, this is interconnection, interliving. Okay? Not interbeing, interliving. Okay, so now, interliving. So we choose to believe that the human individual is not only an attention unit, no, an objective reality, objectively distinct. And then we start thinking about when it becomes distinct, okay? And so we are saying, well, is this really separate from this? Is this an individual, or when does it become an individual? But by extension, we could say, well, is this really separate from this? Okay, is there a sharp contrast, sharp border, boundary between this and this? Or even here, okay, is really this separate from this? And of course, we have the answer, which is extremely simple. If we see not only transitions, okay, like this, and we do not consider this an error, because we really see that this, these densities really belong together and they influence each other, okay? But we also see that these things organically influence each other, this and this, this and this, this and this, okay? Then we are going to start seeing that we have organic interliving here. So of course this thing is not separate from this, and this thing is not separate from this, and this thing is not separate from this. They belong organically together. You see? And the human individual is not something separate. It's diverse. It has its own set of potentialities, okay? So it's unique, individually unique, but it's not separate. Okay? So this is alive, and this is alive, and this is alive, but this is not separate from this. Sorry. And this is not separate from this. And there is no time point when I regard things as separate or non-separate, because they are non-separate all the way, okay? Even in death. So now, narrow focus with low resolution, okay, means that you are going to have distinct units, you are going to have uniform measures which always come with distinct units, and you are going to have money and mass media and universal laws and the great idol, the divine unit, okay, on a mechanistic scheme. Alright? And if you have a wide perspective with a high resolution, then you are going to say ever-changing things, ever-changing patterns, without boundaries, with transitions, with no homogeneity and no standard units, because every standard units, including standard units of thought, categories, okay, or classes, are really oversimplifications. And there is not a separate divine unit either, because the divine, such as everything else that is organic, and divinity is certainly organic, okay, is not a distinct entity, okay? It does not have a time location because it's organic, and its time and space, okay, are just two aspects to describe reality, two aspects of many aspects, okay? So you cannot determine something that is organic solely by one or two aspects. You understand that? So we see transitions. Birth is a transition, but it's a high contrast event, okay? And we see organic and inorganic transitions. So in other words, it's not that these are two separate things, organic and inorganic, but you can see more organic and even more, okay? It's a continuous distribution. We see body and soul, we see left and right, we see up and down, we see hot and warm, we see divine and not divine. There is no distinction, okay? No distinction. These are all continuous distributions, okay? And there's certainly no distinction between one individual and another. They belong organically together. Same here as in here. There is no separate time point, okay, which distinguishes the two. And transitions are not errors. Transitions are a way of interconnection. Okay. So the whole thing comes down really to understand that in an infinitely complex system, large does not contain the small. You see, because what you consider large and what you consider small are very similar if reality is infinite, okay? So this is about the same as this if your perspective was infinite, okay? So infinity and one really is about the same as infinity. Okay, because remember what infinity means. Infinity means mathematical infinity. The perpetual, the iterative repetition of a mathematical operation or rule. Okay, so really there is no difference between the two expressions, because this is a limitless iteration of, say, adding 1. Okay, so one more time. There is no small being less than large. It's only from your specific perspective that you distinguish small and large. And small and large are really from a wide perspective, and the wider your perspective, the more you understand that the large is infinite complexity and small is also infinite complexity. So large does not beat the small. This is our third example of how politics and activism, okay, creates foolishness, absolute foolishness, and violence and cruelty without any reason whatsoever. And just to demonstrate this a little bit, here is a brain cell, and here's the observable universe. You see? And what is common in the two is the way the human mind works and looks at things. Small is infinitely complex, and large is infinitely complex, and small is not less important than the large. So, perspective. The highest human perspective possible is collective observation with communication. And you have to have some kind of coordination so that we understand each other as individuals. So, inter-individual observation presupposes the ability to communicate inter-individually. So, language, logic, mathematics, customs, traditions, philology, religion, rights, reference, citation, art, group memory, group cooperation, song, dance, common projects. These are all attempts toward interpersonal coordination and interpersonal thinking and interpersonal observation. But they have nothing to do with objectivity, because these things all relate to a specific group, okay? A language of a group, a logic of a group, mathematics of a group, customs of a group, dance of a group, style, fashions, vogue, trends of a group. And if you choose to extend your group coordination to others, you will surely step into problems and violence and cruelty. So you may choose methods and tools to coordinate attention, okay? I look at this experiment as set up with a telescope or with a microscope, okay? And you also do the same. I have a prescription for an experiment that I follow and you follow. So these are interpersonal coordination attempts. But the organism is infinite, okay? So you may have groups that are part of that organism, and you have coordination for that particular group. But always remember that there is no limit to extending attention. And therefore, your extensions are going to be different than my extensions. And there should not be a clash between us because of that, okay? So, group has no uniform and separate members. It's a coordinated and organic unity with its own set of life experiences and coordination methods and tools based on those unique life experiences for that group. So, do not extend these to other groups. because they have their own set of unique life experiences and perspectives. So a dead body with separate organs that can be dissected separately, okay? Yeah, this is what anatomy does historically. But in a live organism, the brain is never separate from the lungs, okay? No. Because these are live organs, okay? With multi-level communication between the two. And the two cannot be separated, okay? They are in organic unity. The pituitary and the adrenal glands, they are not separate entities. They closely relate to each other. They interlive. It's not interbeing, it's interliving, okay? So you can separate out them only in a dead body, okay? Only in an artificially fixed environment. But if your organism is alive, these are inseparable, okay? One cannot live without the other. They interlive. So, in Vitologia, we do not seek to describe a dead physical universe, which is an analogy for a dead physical body, okay? Which has separate parts that can be observed. Here's a neutrino, here's a photon, here's a category of comparison, large and small, okay? These things make no sense, okay? Because we have a reality that is alive. And every organic part is in a multi-directional, multi-level, complex interaction with every other organic part. There is no small and there is no large, because everything is important. All perspectives are important. Okay? Yeah. Let's talk about life force. Now imagine that reality is flexible and fertile, a reality of possibilities, alternatives, transitions, and variety, okay? Expanding in all directions. So if you have a fixed world, okay, you have a few dimensions. Why? Because there is a flow of water or any kind of liquid, okay, and it flows from this direction to this direction. It's homogeneous, okay, it's unidirectional, so it has one dimension, this direction, okay? So now, this is a dead, artificial, virtual world. In reality, almost nothing goes like that, okay? It's much more like this. Why? Why is this heterogeneity? Why is this flow that goes all directions? It is because we notice that it's not only one thing that determines flow, it's not only some kind of pressure, but it's many things that determine flow. And the minute that we have many things that will determine flow, then we are going to understand that the flow is not unidirectional. Unidirectional is one-dimensional, is based on one parameter, okay? But we are not living in a fixed world. So, life force organizes, arranges, influences, educates, fertilizes, attends, takes care of. It manifests as a fox like this, okay? I mean, don't tell me that you can mold your child into, you can put your child into a mold and guarantee a unidirectional development. No. There are a lot of different influences, okay? So life force may be actually restricted, especially if you have narrow attention, and may take definite objects, such as a person or group organization, a child, a friend, a lover, a parent, an animal, okay? But really, life force is universal, okay? Life force may manifest itself as water manifests itself as a drop of water. But life force is also the mist, the cloud, the soil water, okay, the stream, the river, the lake, all of this is life force. And you may be able to see some, and of course your attention is always weighted, so you have emotional weights, okay, that makes this important and more important than other things. But you will see that if you see deep enough, then all these things interlive, okay? They belong together. They are in organic relationship with each other, okay? The mist with the soil water and the clouds and whatever. So if you choose only to see the drop of water, that form of water, then of course you have human individuals. And you only see human individuals. But it's not like that. So, life force on a low level of development, okay, may seem to be accidental, unorganized, and destructive, just like wildfire. This is a manifestation of light. Okay, wildfire certainly creates light. But life force can also be orderly, organized, and nurturing, like sunshine. Okay, this is fire, and this is fire, but look at the different influences. So, disorderly, accidental, unorganized, undisciplined, destructive, or orderly, organized, nurturing. Okay, to extreme of the same thing. Wildfire. If you believe in luck, trends, opportunity, results, financial hoarding, competition, temporary effects, laminar flow, okay, then you use the world. You use reality for your own separate interests. You are a wildfire. Or you can be a sunshine. And that means that you have a system, okay? A unique system of understanding. And of course, this uniqueness is never exclusive. You cannot say that your system is better than others. It's different. It's not better. It's not larger, okay? You have organization, patience, creativity, discipline, cooperation. You look at long-lasting effects and a lot of different influencing factors, okay? It's more like a turbulent flow, and it's more like creation, okay? So this is wildfire, and this is sunshine. So organic thinking creates life force, okay? Momentum, impetus, okay? Abundant in variety, multi-directional, full of potentialities, flexible. It influences and inspires. It never wants to convert, never takes over, never conquers. It never fixes perspectives. Mine is the one. Yours is not the one. No. Okay? No. We do not fix perspectives. We synthesize this perspective, that perspective, that perspective. Okay, we add it together, weight it, okay, weigh it, and develop our new unique perspective, okay, which is non-exclusive and which can change all the time. But inorganic thinking, you see, needs fixed categories as a support mechanism, as an aid, as crutches, okay? Few alternatives, forceful homogeneity, it directs, it coerces, and controls. So we were talking about political activism, political extremism. Well, here it is. All these things ultimately come from inorganic thinking, okay? Creating this and creating this, okay? So, separate interests, separate and fixed perspectives, perspectives that compete with each other. Organic thinking is inspiring. is inducive of unique local organic thinking. So organic thinking likes organic thinking. It focuses on the potential. Okay, so look, I was gonna show you this. Okay, so there is a potential of how this influences this and this influences this in this situation like this, in that situation like that. Okay, there are a lot of potentials. Now, in a dead body, there is no potential like that. So ultimately what you see is that inorganic thinking always reduces. You see, it restricts, it fixes, it makes for uniformity, it focuses on the actual. Why is that? Well, it is because if your perspective is very narrow, then you are going to make a big deal out of two observations, right? And you are going to say, well, I did these two observations, and I have discovered the permanent, eternal, exclusive natural laws or divine laws that govern the universe. Okay? Oh no, you only made two observations, but I made three observations. And so your system is wrong and it needs to be reduced into ashes, okay, because my three observations beat your two observations, okay? But notice the nonsensical nature of this, because two observations or three observations basically are no different. You see, there are potentialities. There are potentially an infinite number of observations that are all different. And you can coordinate and fix them in a small community. But if you extend it to something larger than your small consensus, then you're going to run into problems. So organic thinking without a system will be undisciplined and chaotic. So organic thinking always has to have some kind of a system. And that requires organization. But that organization means that you are not going to have permanent rules. The rules are going to change in time. You have to have discipline, yes. You have to have coherence and consistency. But discipline is counterbalanced by flexibility, okay? So the two things are in a balance. A system is really a unit of organized attention. Okay, system is never different than another system because they interlive. But your attention is only so much, so that you look at a specific system as if it was relatively independent from others in space or in time, because attention span is limited. Okay, so really what we call a system is really a complexity unit. It's an imaginary thing. So there is a degree and range of complexity that you can understand, that can be examined with finite effort, okay? So the system is always relative. It's part of an infinitely complex reality and a non-separate part for that. The system has parts, properties, states, classes, and categories only through fixed methods, fixed type of observation, okay, and depending on your tools. The system really intrinsically has no parts and no properties and no states and no classes and no categories, okay, because that's the way you look at your system, depending on your thinking tools or measuring tools or whatever tools, okay? The system has no states except as it relates to you. So, if a system had inorganic parts, and inorganic parts are always artificial, okay, then there was clear distinction between them, okay, under a given dimension. Okay, like in a dead body, all we are looking at is the actual topology, how one position relates to another position. Okay, so you have to have certain dimensions on the basis of which you can make a clear distinction. And then you have countable parts, like there's one brain in one body and there's one liver in one body. But if you look at things and think through things organically, then you see that there are really no separate units. And your separate systems are also imaginary. These things interlive. They are in close dynamic cooperation with each other, okay? And this cooperation, this interliving, okay, changes minute by minute, not conforming to any fixed category. So organic parts are really not countable. One divine unit or two divine units or three divine units, no, they are not countable because they're not separate. So, unit thinking, organic thinking. So, you may have snapshots in time, and you call that a state of a system. Okay? But really, these snapshots are as if you killed the organic system for a minute. You know, snapshots are snapshots. This difference between structurality and functionality is created by the ignorance of dynamism. A snapshot view of potentiality perceived as actual, fixed, post-dimensional, okay, seeing reality as that. But reality is really organic. Snapshots are important and they can help you, yes, but they do not give you the whole picture. And this is autopsy, okay, a dead body, showing how the veins and arteries relate to muscles, okay, and this is a living organism showing that under different circumstances, the relationship between kidney and heart changes, but the two organs are totally inseparable because they interlive. So, a system is a functional unit, okay? So your unit of attention, a complexity unit that you look at as a functional whole, this functional unit dynamically changes with local uniqueness and a perceived degree of coherence and consistency. Okay, so for example, a system can be a human individual that you regard as a system, relatively permanent and a relatively separate unit. It's really a relative permanence of unique patterns, okay? So this person tends to be like this, tends to behave like this, tends to look like this for a while, okay? So there is a relative permanence of certain unique patterns that you then put together as a system. Individuals with uniqueness, this is called personality, okay? The uniqueness of a human individual unit is called personality. This is an example of a functional system. Individuals and personality, it's like dividing humanity up, okay, as human units. But again, if you have an organic interliving, then there is individuality in terms of uniqueness, but there is no separation because these organic parts change with each other and influence each other in many separate ways. You just have to think multidimensionally to detect these multiple levels of influences. So individuals are just like organs or cells. They are in dynamic interaction, changing minute by minute. They are non-separate identities. They are non-distinct identities. They are distinct from one aspect, saying a spatial or even a temporal aspect, okay? But if you look at these things organically, then you will see that they are not separate at all. And here, we see the consequences of inorganic thinking. Not only political activism, okay, but these things, okay, there are classes, classifications, there are mathematical or scientific formulae, okay, there are different distributions, there is hierarchy, okay, and there is unidimensional measurement and ordering, okay. So these things are all artifacts of inorganic thinking. And let's be clear about this. Inorganic thinking is not bad. Inorganic thinking is very useful in certain situations. When we look at things from a certain point of view, because life requires us to do that in a certain given situation. All what I'm saying is that we should not fix and extend these things, and especially not extending or thinking based on these things to other communities with other perspectives, because then we are going to have violence and cruelty and competition. So organic thinking sees reality as a dynamic and potential order with organic and unique parts, nurturing and forming potential with discipline and care. We need to have consistency and discipline, and we need to be active, taking care of, fixations. It's not like this. It doesn't operate like this. Fixations such as laws, rules, categories, classes, hierarchy, distinctions are necessary method-based entities. Okay? They're not absolute. And they should be tailored to an actual need. So surely these are very important for school children. Okay? They are very important in forging unity in a specific group. So these are very, very important. But we should be able to also transcend them. Not deny them, but transcend them. Okay, see the organic background, potentiality behind actuality. Okay, multi-dimensional, highly variable matrices behind simple measuring methods. And inspiration, inducing mental alertness and organic thinking by attending unique needs. Some need more fixations than others. So we are not talking about, we are not talking against fixations here, about against the rules or laws or categories. No. We are just saying that they have a limited domain. And so finally, to summarize the whole thing, we understand that organicity is not a given. If it was a given, it would be fixed, but it is not. But if organicity is not a given, it needs to be lived, okay? And to live organicity means cultivation. And that is constant care, attention with patience and flexibility, but with active influence and systematic, cohesive, consistent, organic thought. And that is going to be our system approach. But remember, our active influence, our active care our systematic approach is not a manifestation of superiority. No. You should not convert, you should not conquer, you should not dominate. Because however complex your system is, it's still in an infinitely complex reality. It's only a little more complex than somebody else's system. It's only a little more active than somebody else's activity. Okay? So, and there is always something that you can learn from others, even if they are more fixated, even if they have less organic thought, even if they consider less. Okay? So you're not going to compete. You are not going to dominate. No, you synthesize. Okay? You are interested in all systems, no matter if they are small or large. Because organicity is infinite. And with that beautiful sentence, I thank you for your attention and goodbye for now.